There's been a lot of talk about what's going to happen with the Utah real estate market and what's happening nationwide, right? We've seen interest rates go crazy. We've seen demand fall off of a cliff. Demand is down about 40 to 50% depending on your market. And there's a lot of people who are sitting on the sidelines waiting to jump in, waiting for either prices to come down or interest rates to come down. Right now is honestly kind of a tough time in the real estate market. We've seen a huge shift in the number of people who are interested in the market. We've seen a huge shift in the mindset that people have. You know, a year ago today, we're seeing people just going absolutely crazy for homes, and that's kind of fallen off now, where people are being a little bit more picky and saying, hey, you know, the ball's in my court. I'm gonna have to pay a little bit more for my home, on a monthly basis, especially if they're getting a loan. And so therefore they're going to be a little bit more picky and make sure that they're really getting kind of that dream home that they're looking for. So I wanted to actually jump into my computer here and take a look at this map that I thought was very, very interesting. We saw this new article come out, and there's some really interesting information about what's happening in Utah and how it compares to the whole nation. Before we do that, my name's Cody Steck. I am your favorite Utah real estate agent. If you're a watcher of the channel, thank you for watching. Welcome back. If you're brand new, I want to welcome you to everything you need to know about living here in Salt Lake City. We talk about what it's like to work, eat, sleep, live, and play here along the Wasatch Front. So if this is your first time, make sure to subscribe. And with that said, let's go ahead and jump into this video. So interactive map. This is an interactive map that was posted on Fortune. And this is just pulled up here on my computer. Let me make this a little bigger. So this is the home price correction or lack thereof in the 400 largest U.S. housing market. So if we come down here, you can see that the shift in home values since their respective 2022 peak, the markets in the western half of the United States have been hit the hardest, right? Not every single market has been, but definitely a lot of them have seen a big shift, right? Here in Utah, we're sitting right here. We're in that 8 to 10% range, depending on the county and city that you're looking at. There are some exceptions to that, of course, like up here in Illinois area, down here in the, I believe this is like Austin/San Antonio area and Houston. Then you've got Florida, which is kind of mixed, actually. You've got some of these that are in blue, which say that they're still near their peak. And then you have some in here in red that are seeing a bigger impact. So I think like this right here is like Tampa, and then you have like Miami and Fort Lauderdale over here that are still staying pretty strong, right? And then you've got this area here, and then up here in New York and like kind of Boston area, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know my geography as well as I maybe should. I know Utah, but maybe not the whole United States. But that being said, looking at this map here, it's really interesting to see that, of course, the San Francisco Bay Area has been hit the hardest, but here in Utah, we've seen some pretty big changes. And there's just a couple things that I wanted to kind of point out here on this map, on this news article. Mortgage purchase applications are down 36.4%, and existing home sales have fallen 35.4%. We've seen a lot of cash buyers jump into the market. They're being able to negotiate on the sellers much, much more heavily, and that's actually helping them get into a house at a better deal. They're negotiating sometimes between 5 and 10% off of the listing price, which is well above what it normally is. Usually on a median basis in a normal market where it's kind of just like, going up a little bit, but kind of mostly flat, you might be able to negotiate 2 to 3% off the listing price. If you get 4 or 5, that's a win in one of those markets. But right now we're seeing somewhere between 5 to 10% on a lot of these homes. So you can definitely get a good deal there, especially if you're in a position where you can close quick, submit a big deposit, and just make an attractive offer to the seller. They're much more likely to take a lower offer. There's another couple things that I want to talk about here. Let's see if we can come down here. By the time U.S. home prices bottom out, Zandy expects them to be 10% below the 2022 peak. That's really interesting to me because that's not very much, right? When you really think about that, 10% off is not that big of a change, right? If you take 10% off of $1 million, that's only back down to 900,000. When really, when you look at it, a home that maybe was 600,000 like 5 years ago is now $1 million, right? So that 10% off the price is not that big of a deal. Among the 24 major housing forecasters tracked by Fortune, 17 predict that U.S. home prices will decline further in 2023. Another 7 firms think U.S. home prices will remain flat or rise by a low single-digit amount in 2023. This is extremely interesting. I wonder if they're kind of combining all markets together, because this is very market heavy, right? It really depends on what market you're in and determines what prices are going to do, right? Like for instance, San Francisco and New York, they kind of operate on their own terms, right? We might be having a booming market everywhere else, but then New York is like suffering. So it's very location dependent, which is something to keep in mind. It's really surprising though that 7 out of 24 are expecting prices to be flat or even rise across the board in 2023. I think that's pretty optimistic. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I think that prices are going to come down another 3 to 6% over the next, let's say, half a year. And so I think that's something that's going to have to change it'll be interesting to see what these guys think, you know, here in 3 to 6 months, I guess. Now, if we take a break really quick and just kind of think about why the market is doing what it's doing, this is a much different time than it was back in 2007, 2008. Right now, the only reason the housing market has gone through this downturn is because a lot of people got pushed out of the market because they were no longer able to afford the payment that they would have on their house with the rising interest rates. They're now in a position where they're kind of thinking, hey, you know, my rate should have been 3% if I would have bought a year ago, but now I'm looking at 5, 6, 7%. That's just going to push me out of the market. My payment is too much. I'd rather just rent and, you know, stay where I'm at, or just not even sell my home and just, you know, stay where I am rather than trying to make a move and lock in on a higher mortgage. So there's been so much demand that's fallen off, and we haven't seen any drastic changes in inventory. Inventory was extremely low, and that has come up. Now it's just low, but we've still seen a lot of demand. Jobs are incredibly powerful. You know, jobs are still being created. You might hear a lot of headlines talking about how jobs are being, you know, people are getting laid off. And yeah, that is true for a lot of the big companies, but a lot of the small and medium-sized companies are still hiring and still bringing people in. So there's definitely a lot of work out there. And, you know, there's a lot of things that are really kind of supporting this market. And that's why we haven't seen those big price drops in a lot of markets. You know, Utah and most of the West Coast was a very heavily, you know, inflated market just because of so many people relocating and moving around. But that is going to start to change a little bit. So if we come down here, let's take a look at this list. This is a shift in home sales, home values since their respective 2022 peak. So Coeur d'Alene, Idaho has seen the biggest drop. They're down 10.8%. We have San Jose, Austin, San Francisco, Santa Cruz, Phoenix, Las Vegas, and then Salt Lake, right? These three are all kind of right next to each other, Phoenix, Vegas, and Salt Lake. So to see these price drops is not surprising at all, right? Salt Lake is up here at the top, or near the top at 7.9%. If we come down a little bit further, we also have, let's see, where did I just see that? Yeah, St. George is right here, and then Provo is down here. So Provo's actually only seen about a 5% drop, which is interesting because Salt Lake is close to 8%. So I would have actually expected this to see a bigger impact in Provo, or at least see those numbers be closer together. But for whatever reason, they're not. Salt Lake has seen the biggest decrease in prices from their all-time high. This is saying that you're about 7.9%. I've actually seen that we're probably a little bit higher. I think this is going through maybe November, I think is when this was, data through November of 2022. So we're about a month behind on this information. So it could be even a little bit higher today, but that's something that I think is worth noting. That chart really doesn't mean anything to us. So that kind of basically wraps up this article here on my computer. I just wanted to talk about kind of what's happening in the market and what people are expecting and what's happening on a nationwide basis, right? I think it's important to compare Utah and how it compares to the nation, because a lot of people will look at this and they forget that it's very location dependent, right? If you're in a market that has a lot of demand, then the housing and the real estate is going to see a lot of demand in that area, right? If there's a lot of jobs being created, which here in Utah there is. So even though we've been hit one of the hardest in the country, that's not surprising because prices went up the highest over the last couple of years, right? We saw Salt Lake was ranked like, I don't know, maybe in the top 10 for metro markets that saw the biggest increase in prices over the last couple of years. So because we ran up so much, of course, we're going to fall a little bit more than the rest of the country. And I don't think that's anything to worry about. I still believe that Utah real estate is going to be very strong. There's jobs happening, jobs being created every single day here in Utah, and that's going to bring more and more high-skilled, high-paid talent into the state, and they're going to want nicer and nicer homes. And there's, just as you get more and more people, there's going to be more and more demand for these different types of homes. So I'm still extremely bullish on Utah real estate. If you're thinking about making a move here and you want me to help you, I would love to do so. I've helped hundreds of people move here from across the country, and even a lot of people here in our backyard make a move, you know, buy or sell real estate. And I want to be your trusted real estate resource when it comes to doing that for your own family. So make sure to reach out to me. My information is here on the screen. You can call, text, or email me anytime. I'd love to hear from you. And you can also find some more information in that description box below. Before you go, make sure to share this video with a friend or a family member who's interested in this type of content. And with that said, thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one.